Hi, everyone. Welcome to Three Bone Theater's YouTube channel. We're so excited to be joined today by some very special guests. This conversation is to be paired along with our streaming production of Protective Custody, Prisoner 34042 by Charles Laborde. And we've got some wonderful guests here today related to the project. This is a play that we premiered and that this wonderful group of people helped put together and create back in 2019. And we're doing a little reflection 5 years later. So thank you for joining us and hope that you enjoy this conversation. I want to just introduce who we have on the call here today. Jackie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. My name is Jackie Fishman. I'm a retired high school English teacher, and my mother is the subject of this play. And my dear friends Charles and Dennis have helped us along with Robin, helped make this play into a reality. And we are still very, very proud of it and hope you will enjoy seeing it as well as anything that we can help illuminate the subject with.
Thank you, Jackie. And we're joined by two members of Charlotte Theater royalty as well. Charles, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Charles Laborde. I was the person that Jackie uh, convinced, commissioned, or whatever the right word is, to turn her mother's memoir into a play, and was honored to be asked to do it. I had certainly known her mother as a leader in the community for years, run into her in the theater, sitting usually on the front row. It was a delight to be able to tell her story as much in her own words as we could. So that's me.
And Dennis?
And I'm Dennis Delamar. Very glad to be here. These two people are great friends of mine, and we've enjoyed our collaboration. Um, I'm the one that kind of got an idea. Susan was a dear friend of mine since the 80s as a fellow thespian in the Charlotte theater community. And we chatted all the time, and I kind of got an idea that wouldn't her story be a great play? Mentioned it to Jackie. She jumped on it. And
Right.
then we both knew exactly the man that was right for the job because he has such experience with this. Charles and I had already worked and performed one of his pieces, Dress the Unknown. Um,
Mhm.
so I directed the play and am proud of that. And also, it was important to me to include Susan in our process. And some of that inclusion brought some sweet benefits for the ultimate finale piece that we came up with.
Absolutely. Well,
And I
thank you
just want to
all.
say
Yeah.
one thing more. Dennis, in directing this first production, is much more of a collaborator, as on you would get in any play that's being done for the first time. His contribution to it is immense,
Yeah,
more than just
it was a play
directing.
development
He didn't
process.
just tell
Mhm.
the actresses where to move on the stage and
Right.
that sort of thing.
And I have to add to this, Charles, you'll agree, because we were there. Miss Robin here was a big part of our collaboration.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely.
Such a gifted person at helping us fine tune it. And there were edits we had to make, and she is very skilled at that. And her input was very valuable to the ultimate final product.
Right.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Dennis. Yeah. Yeah. It was, I mean, I think this is a piece that Three Bone continues to just be immensely proud of. And in no small part because of the wonderful artists that we got to work with and also the honor of telling Susan's story. So for viewers who maybe have not seen the play yet or seen the streaming production yet, um, Susan Cherniak Spatz. Dr. Susan Cherniak Spatz is the subject of the play, and it's based off of her memoir. And she is a Holocaust survivor. It follows from her young childhood life up through her survival of the Auschwitz-Birkenau death camps, and we're really grateful to be able to tell that story. And we started, you all started working on this piece in maybe
17,
2017,
yeah,
16.
Mhm.
16, 17.
Yeah, when globally we were seeing a rise in authoritarianism, a rise in anti-Semitism, certainly something that is alive and well today as we are reflecting 5 years back. So I just wanted to start with a question, and I'd love to hear from each of you. Just, revisiting this story, Jackie, obviously your personal history, your family's history, revisiting this, kind of what are some of the thoughts and the what comes up for you as you're looking back at this remarkable story of survival in the environment of just such devastation.
I will venture my thoughts on that. My mother was as a let me add for the audience sake, my mother was also a professor at UNC Charlotte. She was in the foreign language department. Her PhD was in French and German language and literature, but she began the Holocaust Studies program at UNCC. And her mission really was education about this period of history, and to try to promote an understanding of human behavior, because we all have the capacity to be like the people who lived at that time. They're not that different than we are right now. So I am, again, with Robin, immensely proud of the production that happened 5 years ago, but even more convinced that it is a great tool for reminding us that unfortunately humankind didn't learn a whole lot from it, and that that's horrible, truly, that we can't seem to get beyond these kinds of behaviors that are harmful to one another, to our cultures, to our planet. And so to have it available again, and hopefully to have people who will respond to it is very important to me and to the memory of what my mother survived and what she hoped that her teaching, her mission of speaking, all of it could bring to humankind.
Thank you.
It was her mission right to the end. And I'm I love sharing that, and we were all so proud. She got to see the play 2 weeks before she passed away. She was
Mhm.
under hospice care, and Jackie and her brother and sister and her hospice nurse, they brought her to the show on a Sunday night, I think it was, um, rolled her in a wheelchair, and she got to experience it. And I'll be forever proud of that. And it was important for her. And I love telling the next day, or one of the things she would say to us when I went to see her the next day at her bed, at her apartment, she said, "Take it on the road, take it on the road." That was her. She wanted it to go on. And the fact that it can go on like this is just her wishes. And we are fulfilling
We're
those.
fulfilling it.
Yeah. This opportunity came up. Robin, you can explain that. During COVID, a grant, I think, because you don't usually get to make such a quality a video, and we had a professional company come in and it was a year or so later, and we pulled the show back together and got all the props and costumes, and the two actresses warmed up again, and we did filmed it.
Yeah,
We've
it
not
was. It was
on an audience.
about a year later. We got funding from the ASC Culture Blocks program, and were able to hire Will Jenkins and his team at Simplistic Phobia to come and film, and they're amazing and highly recommend them to anyone in Charlotte. And I think it's interesting because I remember, we were filming in the McGlowan. It was during COVID, and no one else was really allowed to be in the space, and
Mhm.
I remember, reflecting on it even a year later and feeling like, oh my gosh, this is more relevant even now, than when we originally produced it. And now that just feels so much more amplified. Charles, do you want to share some reflections on just, looking back at the play that you wrote, adapted 5 years later, and what that might bring up for you?
Yeah, the relevancy question. While I was writing the play, while we were in production, there were events going on that were a direct parallel to the events in the play. And so I was rewriting Susan's final speech almost daily. And there'd be some new atrocity, horrible thing, shootings in a church, Charleston. And
Charlottesville.
Dennis would say to me,
Charlottesville, West
he'd
Virginia.
say, you know what happened today? He said, you're going to put that in the play, aren't you? I'd say, yep, I am. And so the final speech in the play is very current to Susan at the end of her life. And I certainly wouldn't add anything now to it because I think then it becomes dishonest.
Hmm.
Uh, but it
Right.
truly does reflect things that were happening at that time. And even though the speech, most of the play really is her words,
Mhm.
but that speech I wrote with her spirit in my head, and just hearing her voice and getting putting those words in her mouth, similar to what she had said to us, warned us about when we met with her and talked with her about the play. So I think it's sadly even more relevant today because we have things happening not just in this country but around the world that show that anti-Semitism is far from defeated, and that hatred. I'm constantly puzzled. That's too soft a word, maybe,
Hmm.
by the hatred I see
Mhm.
in this country, around the world, and then the deaths of people that people don't even know. I don't understand how you hate someone or dislike them or want to see them dead that you've never met, that you never sat down and talked to. And I think that maybe it's just part of the human condition, but I think the arts, writing, people like Susan who survived the worst kind of horrors, that if we listen to them, maybe we'll learn something.
Yeah, I love that. And that's a perfect segue into my next question for you all, which is really, how, having worked on this piece in the context of Holocaust education, in the context of, the current state of American politics and American rise in fascism and anti-Semitism. Um, what do you all see as the role of arts and artists and the humanities and literature? I mean, it's clear throughout the play and from getting to talk with you, Jackie and Dennis, that was, those areas, the arts, literature, language were so critically important to Susan as well, in how she related to the world and to her humanity. So what do you all, what are your thoughts on sort of the role of the arts and humanities and culture in the face of, these kind of scary times we're in?
I want to respond to that in the sense that I was an English teacher, all right? I'm still an English teacher, but I am
Always English.
convinced that the two things that to me, because these are the arts I know literature and I'm kind of a theater groupie. I've been on the stage before, but more so, I love the stage. I love the theater. Um, but those two arts, particularly, it seemed to me, are the best opportunities we as human beings have of being in someone else's shoes. I think a really fine piece of literature, or even some crummy pieces of literature, but they allow us, a good writer will allow us to be inside someone's head and understand how they filter information through their own particular experiences and context. And theater, of course, when you're in a darkened place with a group of people and you are seeing the very essence and substance of people's life play out in front of you, I just feel like those are the most educative experiences you can have for your humanity, for your understanding that everybody out there is not like you, but they all, not all, most of us have some worth hidden somewhere.
Mhm.
And to be able to absorb some of that humanity, I just feel like people who don't have the arts in some way part of their lives are missing out on some invaluable lessons about being a human being.
And also theater and the arts, literature as well, uh, can bring history alive.
Yes.
It to show us what happened and inform us and teach us the historic references and the context as we can compare how that relates to us now. And that's so important. It also taps into emotion, our emotions, our feelings, our sadness, our happiness, all of that happens with a live piece of good theater.
Mhm.
And thank goodness we have the arts and that the stories continue to be told. This is one of those stories. It's profound in that it's giant, it's massive, it is personal, it is one person's story, as she points out, which Charles wrote. She tells us that this is one story of the Holocaust, but it represents so much and people can relate to it. And I'm thankful for the arts. Right now, Paula, who was one of the two women in our show, is performing in cabaret and in Concord, and they open in a couple of weeks. And that's an example of a story that went there about the same time in history uh, when the Nazis were beginning to take over. I got to be in that show at Theater Charlotte, and Susan came to our rehearsal. Our director, Steve Umberger, brought her, and she talked to us what Germany was like at that time and enlightened us. Meant so much to her. She loved the piece and that we were doing it. That's an example of the arts telling a story and reflecting and letting us reflect, the people who watch, uh,
Mhm.
how the past informs the present. Uh, it is up to us in the present to do something with that. Uh, Often I wonder what eyes and ears are seeing it, the ones that really need to see it and digest it,
Mhm.
comprehend it. But anyway, Charles, thoughts?
Uh, you know, all of my plays, or the vast majority of them, every one of them up until the time that I wrote this play, and then the next play I wrote, which was a family one about my family, have all dealt with history subjects. And then all but one of those were specifically about warfare or in
Mhm.
times of war. And I think that's a common theme, the strength it requires of people to survive in those times. Um, Unfortunately, they're spread from the American Civil War up through World War II and Vietnam War. So, we keep seeing the same themes throughout. Fortunately, my two latest plays are not at all about war. They're much more normal. I don't know, that's not the right word.
Yeah.
I,
Great.
I want to add something here too. I don't in the play it becomes clear, but also for those of you who are about to see or have just seen this, um, my mom was also an actress herself, and that's why one reason people knew her. But there is nothing that any of us could have done that would have made her any happier than and did make her happy
Yeah.
that her experience was made into theater because she adored the theater and she was a damn good actress too.
She was.
I think that Charles will agree, as a fellow thespian. There's not many things in my career of 40 or 50 years in theater more satisfying, that has been more satisfying than making that happen, experiencing it, and the success of it, and to see what it meant to her. I will always love that and will tear up in a heartbeat if I'm not careful.
Yeah.
Do you remember the moment we took her out to lunch and showed her
Oh,
the script?
yes.
Because it was a secret.
Yeah.
And Charles, go ahead.
I remember
Okay,
we
tell
went,
it, Charles.
it was a secret. I had written the first draft. Dennis had read it, Jackie had read it, but Susan knew nothing about what was going on. And we have the meeting, we're all a little tense.
Yeah.
And here are Dennis and Jackie, who knew her much better than I did. I knew her more as a figure on the stage.
But
And
she respected you.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they turned to me and said, Charles, like I get you. So, and she, and me, we were all there going, what if she says no? And she didn't, obviously. But
There
it was
wasn't a
intense.
chance, Charles.
Well, I know, but until the fat lady sings and all that. But it was a delightful day, and the joy then in her face
Mm.
in seeing that we're going to try to continue her story, because the play is a dramatized imitation of the lectures she gave throughout her life.
Mhm.
I don't know, in the play she changes clothes a lot in front of the audience, and I don't think she ever did that in any one of her lectures, but
Probably not.
probably not. But she really received it well, and she was very much, in addition to using her book and as many words from her book as I could, she was very much a collaborator on the show.
Mhm.
She
Yeah,
Jackie read it to her. They read it. I think you printed versions of it in larger
Mhm.
type for her to read. And
Right.
she would come back and would say, you left this part of the story out. I remember especially the music.
Yeah.
And there's a scene with music, and that was not in the original draft of the play. And she said, no, you've got to have that in there. It's got to be in there. And I'm going, okay, you're the boss. And that is to me, it's one of the most moving moments in the play.
Mhm.
I wish I could say that I thought of it, but it was all her. And I think that's part of the strength of the play, is that there's so much of her and her spirit in the play. And for people who never met her, she was a strong personality. She'd been through a lot.
Jackie.
Yeah, she
Jackie.
was.
Oh, yeah.
She had great candor.
Mhm.
She told it like it is. That was one of the things, as my friend, as a theater friend, she came to all my plays that I was in or directed, and always had words after it of her opinion of the work, the performance. And if she didn't like it, she let you know that.
Yeah.
So to have her approval on this
Oh, she
was
would.
very, very special for her to say the things, how much she loved it after she saw it, meant a lot. One of the process of the whole experience, I thought it important that that day we told her she made it clear, anything I can do, anything I can do. So I respected that and tried to would confer and ask questions so she felt consulted and like there would be a visual that I sent through Jackie pictures, I think of potential costumes about some of the things that she wore that
Tying the kerchief too.
I visited and interviewed her at her apartment. Jackie was there and it facilitated it and got her to pronounce every
Yeah.
single city and word that I had doubts that I wanted to make sure my actors said correctly. And that day, I brought a kerchief and I said, could you show us so I can share with my actress the proper way to tie the kerchief? And she did. She talks about it.
The kerchief that they were made to wear in the camp.
Yeah, that they were made to wear in the camp and the significance.
Mhm.
And that was something she was asked about. The bowl that's so important and what it looked like, and our incredible props person, this team that worked on this, our stage manager, Sarah and Jackie Hohenstein, she would get the authenticity that we needed, but the bowl is real important when they were given one bowl for all purpose in the camp, which is just sad and graphic and devastating stories she told about it and relieving themselves and having to eat out of the same bowl and just you'll hear all that and she'll tell what it is like. And she we showed her pictures and which bowl would be the better. And she said that one. And Jackie even painted it to get it the right color. And so having her involved to get her call on some things while we were doing the show and building it, I think it really made her feel good and that she was connected and honored.
Well, it also, I think one of the things that really drew us as a company to this story too is that it's this first person narrative and that we're losing those, right? Especially when it comes to the Holocaust, and you have more and more survivors who are passing away as they age, and so I think, the specificity of a first person narrative makes capturing that story so much more, I think, real for people. The details around the bowl, the details around the clothing, the beautiful wonderful costumes that Magda was able to recreate and tell this horrific story through. I think like those little details just they make such a big difference when you're talking about trying to tell the story authentically and to be real to who Susan was. I also love that this is not it's not watered down, right? Even in the middle school version that we have available, it's really not watered down. Susan is still, the candid, she cusses.
But let's remember she was also a scholar of the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that was extremely important to her because certainly in the face, there are lots of Holocaust deniers out there.
Yes.
And not only is she a witness and a survivor, but she's a scholar.
Yeah.
And that played a large part in her motivation and in appreciating how careful you all were in getting the details right.
Yeah. One of the things I loved as a director and the artistry of this, and Charles was right there to help cultivate it. His original idea, my thought was originally a one-person show, one woman, and it's his idea after he read it, the significance of the clothing. She loved clothes. As she would say, she was a clothes whore, and that jokingly, that she just loved beautiful things and she looked gorgeous whenever you saw her. But the use of the clothing, that we did the show on a bare stage with one chair and that bowl. Very little props at all, but the costumes were another character, like the star, and that Magda researched every one of them and built them from scratch. And that's phenomenal when you watch it. How I love that we created a story with those simple, just a chair and a bowl and a
And the
And a clothes rack.
and our
Yeah, and a
clothes
clothes
rack with a many changes. Charles, talk a little about that.
the concept of building the play around the clothes and the changing of the clothes came directly out of the book, because as I read the book and I was underlining parts of it and saying, well, because it's a several hundred page book and turned into a 90-minute or so play. It's not easy. But the thing that stood out, she would, throughout the book, talk about the clothes. And the clothes became a symbol of progress in the camp. That if you got better clothes, then your chances of surviving were better than if you got worse clothes. And in fact, some of the clothes, especially the shoes, if you got bad ones, it were pretty much a death sentence. And so the clothes, it struck me as odd. I've obviously in my long life read a lot of biographies and autobiographies, and I don't think I've ever read one where the clothes were so often mentioned. And that's where it came from. So, sometimes people go, oh, what a great idea you had. I said, well, it's really, again, an idea taken directly from Susan. The clothes were important to her and important enough for her to mention it in her memoir. And so they became an important part of the play. And Magda did.
Adding
She
the
is a
second
genius of the first
character,
order.
Charles brilliantly added the second character, who was her dresser, and facilitated every one of these changes. And then she became characters. And Paula Baldwin, Leslie Giles Nestor, played Susan, a younger in her youth, 20s, 30s, and Paula, an older actress, 50-ish. Thank you, Paula. But
Paula
will find that very amusing.
She played many characters, including her mother, which was quite a significant and dramatic piece of the story. Not giving more away, but all of that sweeps you up in her life story, that one thing led to the other. But the many characters Paula played as the dresser was phenomenal, and there's a theatricality about that is so enjoyable for the audience, which is what I was hoping, that we can make this piece engaging and entertaining while we're getting this story sequentially, as Susan tells us.
Yeah.
I think we've kind of sneak previewed it in this video.
Well, I'm sure some people will be watching this after they watch it as well. So I think that's totally fine. And I think it's always interesting to hear kind of how some of those decisions around the production were made and why we're telling the story this way. I think that's all really wonderful. As we kind of wrap up, I would love to hear from each of you. What I know Susan always asked the question of like, why does this matter to you now? And I'm wondering if you can share just a brief, piece of advice or thought to our audience, our viewers, saying what you hope people will take from this production, from this story at this time, and just how how you hope that moves people.
Not an easy one. I think that we just all need to be hyper aware of what's going on around us and decide how we can best either hopefully resist what we know can come from the kind of world that is evolving right now. I think all of us in our own way have to figure out who we are in this new context. But to do that, I think we really have to raise our awareness to a different level than we may have in the past. Inform yourself.
Yeah. Yes.
One of I take the two words simplification almost and powerful, and it was Susan's, but the never again keeps resonating with me. That's the message of this play as well. It was Susan's mantra, and I just think, like Jackie said, it is up to us to keep our eyes open and our minds open and do what we can do to stop what's history repeating itself. And it sure as hell is.
Mhm. Yeah.
I would say, to play off that same idea of Susan's never again, that in hand with that is never forget.
Oh,
Never
yeah.
forget. And plays like this and stories like hers are a way of not forgetting what can happen, and in many ways appears to be happening again. In recent days, a battle now between our government and the universities of this country. Education, because if you subdue the universities, then the next step is to subdue the public schools, right on down to pre-K, and we can't let that happen.
Charles, you might need to write a sequel.
Yeah, thank you all so much. I just want to offer as well to our viewers that the organization that we partnered with for the original production and for the streaming film is the Stan Greenspan Center. Highly recommend checking out the resources that they offer to the Charlotte community around Holocaust education and ways that we can take care of each other as a community. We'll also echo what Jackie said around educate yourself. There are lots of books around how to resist fascism, how to resist authoritarianism, how to care for one another, how to identify anti-Semitism and protect
It's
each other.
right. And the Greenspan Center is also focused on all social justice
Yes.
matters,
Yes.
not just Holocaust education.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely correct. Correct. So we hope that everyone who watches the streaming production, everyone who has joined us for this wonderful conversation, that you all will feel empowered and inspired to go out and do something as well. Connect with community members, get educated, read a book, and hopefully continue to spread Susan's story. And on that note, I want to say that the play is available for purchase on Amazon. We would love, for you to purchase that. Her memoir is also available, I believe. And there's an audiobook of her reading it as well. And that this play is available to be produced. And we would love, love, love to see Protective Custody and Susan's story produced all over the world. So if you have any interest in that, please reach out to us or to Charles, and we will make sure that you are connected and able to create this show or produce the show in your own communities. So
Robin,
thank you.
I hear that they've had a lot of cancellations at Kennedy Center. Maybe the people in Washington
Yeah.
would benefit from watching it.
Oh, Lord.
They would certainly benefit.
I
Thank you
wonder
all.
what the chances are of it getting there.
Yeah. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Charles. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Dennis. And thank you to everyone for watching. We'll see you at the next event.
Bye-bye.
Bye.